Today I'm going to talk about 2 days readings, yesterday and today's readings from Genesis 30 through 34. And so I'll combine these two ideas together. And there's a lot going on in this section. We have Rachel and Leah fighting over Jacob, and they're fighting over his ability to produce children, and it becomes such a big issue. And I think this kind of shows again that the biblical authors very often, especially in the Hebrew scriptures, don't always come out and say this is right, this is wrong, but they let you see the consequences of going against what God said in the very beginning, that God said that marriage is between one man and one woman, that it's a commitment for life, that human beings are made in God's image, and that's really the bedrock of ethics and morality and marriage on the first 2 pages of the Bible. But they went against that, and you see this problem with bigamy and all of the strife that happened in their family and all of the bickering that happened because of it. And then when finally Jacob decides that he's got to leave Laban, just getting too difficult to stay there at Laban's house, and he keeps changing his wages, and it keeps causing all these problems. When they leave, Rachel steals one of the idols of Laban, and there's some discussion on that and what that means and why would Rachel do that, and I probably is more I need to research on that, but it just seems to me that we just see that Rachel hasn't fully committed herself to the Lord, but was kind of almost hedging her bets, and just shows the Bible doesn't sanitize the lives of the family of God. And we'll see the same thing kind of happen in the future in Israel when Israelites are entering into the promised land, and Joshua has to tell them, even after being in the wilderness for 40 years, put away your idols, put away your gods as we enter into the promised land. Now, Jacob prepares to meet Esau in chapter 32, and this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Remember, Jacob his name means the heel grabber, somebody who trips people up. He's been the deceiver. And that's who he's been since the beginning. He deceived his father and deceived Esau, and then he was deceived by Laban, and he tried to even strike a bargain with God on his way to Laban's house when he made that vow to the Lord. If the Lord blessed him, then he would follow the Lord. And so his whole life has been this kind of this contractual relationships, this business-like, even deceptive way of making everything a sale, everything, and even undermining it by doing deceitful ways of getting his will done. And so when now Jacob he's got no more ways to deceive, he's got no way out of this. He's going back to see Esau, and he hears that Esau is coming with, I think it says 300 men or 400 men or something like that. And Jacob's got no way out. And so he prays the Lord, and that night the Lord comes to him in bodily form, and it's a very strange but profound episode where the Lord wrestles with Jacob, and Jacob's got to wrestle with God. So instead of Jacob wrestling with human beings and tripping them up, now he's holding on to this kind of incarnate God, and he's wrestling with God. And God could destroy him at any moment. He even touches his socket, and he wrenches his socket by just touching him. So God could have totally destroyed him. But he doesn't. He lets him wrestle with him. And there's so much here. There's so much for us to think about and meditate on. But I think this is what God really wants from us, that we would hold on to him, that we'd wrestle with God and his promises. And so instead of Jacob trying to connive his way out of this, he's got no way out, nothing left to do. He's got to learn to trust in the Lord, hold on to him. And I just love that scene. It's just so very powerful. And so the Lord changes his name from heel grabber to the one who wrestles with God, Israel. So then that becomes Jacob's name, Israel. And then his 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. And these become the children of Israel. And so for the rest of the history, the nation of Israel comes from this episode. So it's very, very important. When he finally does meet with Esau, God has fulfilled his promise to be with Jacob, and Esau is at peace with him. He doesn't strike vengeance, but he forgives his brother, and there isn't the hostility that he was so afraid would happen because of all of his failures. The next chapter, chapter 34, it's very sad, but it's part of the real world when Dinah is violated by the people of Shechem, and her brothers end up murdering the Shechemites. It's just a very dark scene, but it's real life. This is the reality of our world, where abuse happens, where strife happens, where sin rears its ugly head. What's good about this scene, at least, is Dinah's brothers listened to her outcry, and maybe we could discuss on how they dealt with it and what they did about it, but at least they listened. And I hope that here at Victory we are listening to the outcries of people who've been in abuse and who've been in really bad situations, and we want to be there to care, to comfort, and to encourage, and to bring justice and healing and forgiveness in all of these areas. So very, very challenging section of Scripture, but keep reading, keep subscribing, keep sharing. Let's keep reading the Bible, and let's read it again as history, but it's a story. God is telling his story of reality, real people, and this is written also in a very intentional way to show all the twists and turns, to show all the symbolism. So it's worth meditating on, it's worth thinking about, it's worth seeing all of these many, many connections and how God works in this story. So keep reading, don't give up. See you tomorrow.